Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel called Zuzanareacts, where I learn all things para. You help and I share from my Slovak Central European point of view. And in today's video, we are continuing with the Ranveer show with a Things-Go guy on geopolitics. If you haven't seen the part 1, I will somehow link it up here. But you would have seen that I was super excited and super commentative about that. So I paused the video on the exact same part where I finished, so we can get into the part 2. And I think the part 2 we are picking from the point when Things-Go was presenting about how Singapore has kind of a different policy in order to uplift the nation. But before we jump into the video,
please like this video and click on the subscribe button and turn on the notification. Thank you so much for your support.
Okay, I am itching to continue. Let's go.
Wonder how much this Singapore case study, because of the differences in the two sizes of the countries, applies to India. Because I have noticed that whether it's actual politicians or people going about political banter, lots of folks bring up the size of the nation situation. My personal opinion is that maybe only actual people in governance and administration have actual intel on how difficult or how easy it is to run such a big country. Not easy, but how difficult it is to run such a big country.
Correct.
Maybe that's why I don't know how much we can truly learn from Singapore, especially when it comes to this whole communal tension angle that we are talking about. The one out and out negative about the BJP for me over the last 9 years, and I'm not anti-BJP by any means, but everyone who speaks against the BJP brings this up. I've asked all the BJP politicians who've come on the show about this. They defend it. Obviously, they say that there's nothing like that. But I'm a citizen of the country. We're all citizens of the country. The communal tension in this country has increased during the last 9 years. Way more than I'd like.
Okay.
When I brought this up with Nitin Gadkari, he said that it's a marketing campaign from the opposition's side. That they project the BJP as a bit of a fascist regime. And they say that, hey, these guys are going to be responsible for eradicating people from other religions, non-Indic religions from this country. Okay, and when you bring it up with the BJP folks, they say, no, there's nothing like that. In fact, we've done a lot for Muslims. In fact, we've done a lot for minorities. And then they back it with data, as we spoke about.
True.
So the actual opinion makers when it comes to this communal tension situation are Christians, Muslims, other minorities, Parsis, who actually pro-BJP, which is what I also find weird, that there is a minority that's very much pro-BJP.
True.
So could it be that I hear anti-BJP narratives a lot from Muslims and Christians? There are two possibilities here. Either things are actually bad for them, or, as we spoke about social media silos and information silos, are the minorities of our country being fed only one narrative, which is an extremely anti-Modi narrative. Now, I've tried talking to my Christian friends and Muslim friends about this. They are strongly of the opinion that it's case A, which is that as the privileged parts of this country, as the majority religion, we are not able to exactly see their problem and we're not able to understand the daily life. And the actual problems are not happening in the cities, they're happening in the interiors of the country.
Yeah.
Which is true. You do sense some kind of anti-Muslim narratives when you talk to, say, a Hindu cab driver. I make it a point to ask them about their villages, just to understand what's happening there. I've spoken to some Muslim cab drivers in Mumbai, and even they say that, yeah, life has become difficult there. For example, they're questioned more in public back home. They're scrutinized more. Jibes are thrown at them more. Okay. Now, the argument that a lot of our Hindu brethren put forth is that, hey, look at Pakistan. At least we are not Hindus in Pakistan where everyone is killing everyone. That don't go about the whataboutery. Let's address this. I personally feel that the right of opinion here lies with Christians and Muslims in this country. If they're truly feeling persecuted, attacked, threatened, there is something wrong.
What is wrong is the formation of something called echo chambers. Have you heard about echo chambers?
Yeah, the same social media algorithm vertical.
Very simple. There is one thing to feel threatened and there is one thing to be threatened. There's a very thin border between both of them. The reason why a lot of people feel threatened is because some of them are actually threatened. They amplify it on social media. And the ones who are not threatened, they feel threatened. The concept of echo chamber basically says that if I have a certain opinion and I put it out on social media, eventually the algorithm will begin to feed me according to my confirmation bias.
Absolutely.
For example, let's say I'm a pro-Modi person. What kind of video will I click on YouTube? Will I click on a video that criticizes Modi ji? No, I will watch a video that talks about the development of India and how Modi ji is transforming India. The moment I click on that video, what will happen? The algorithm will understand that this guy will watch content that praises Modi ji. As a result, it will feed me more content. As a result, I will keep on watching more pro-Modi content. So my opinion about Modi ji will become very strong positively. Similarly, if you're a person who does not like Modi ji and you watch content that criticizes Modi ji, you will also be segregated by the algorithm as a person who consumes content that is anti-Modi. As a result, you'll be fed that. Just like that, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and on YouTube, once these echo chambers are made, what happens is tension starts building. Now, if you take the same concept and you try to apply it in the 1990s, except for small gatherings where our grandparents used to read newspapers or small gatherings where people used to meet during functions, apart from that, there wasn't a possibility of belonging to an echo chamber. But today, because of social media, you get ready access to that echo chamber. You get ready access to that information. And because of that, even though people are not threatened, they feel threatened. And when this piles up, you get a bipolar society. So that is what is happening, which is making people feel threatened overall. So the reality is far from what we see on social media. And because it is so nuanced, you can't actually comment on it. Because when it comes to some villages, Muslims feel extremely safe over there. But we may not see that as data points on social media. How many times have you actually seen people say, dude, I'm a Muslim over here and I feel extremely safe over here and stuff like that, versus a person who's being beaten up and that video is being captured and then posted on social media, right? So if you and I have this conversation, we are talking with a very limited data set to actually get closer to the truth. We are far away from truth.
Yeah. I've always feared bringing up these names on the show because honestly, I believe in the last few months, because of those whole BJP podcasts and all, at least in the world of journalism, I have a right-wing image, which is not true. If anyone sees the show, they know what the true thoughts are within this mind. So I've always feared bringing up these names, but I will bring it up. And I'm saying this out of a place of respect, as well as it being an open invite to them. I want to invite both Rana Ayub and Faye D'Souza on the show.
At the same time?
At different times. Ideally, with a journalist who is fully pro-Modi.
Okay.
And I'll say why. I think Rana Ayub, first of all, at least for her own audiences, she is the face of bravery. And I'd followed on social media for a very long time to understand exactly what's happening, just because her name had come up so much in social situations. So I wanted to see what's up. It's just a stream of Muslims are being persecuted in India content. Okay. Now, my counter to that narrative that Rana Ayub puts forth is exactly what you said. Which is that, hey, maybe this is just highlighting the cases where Muslims are persecuted and possibly even Hindus are persecuted as much in certain parts of India.
Correct.
Which is true.
Correct.
And there are Hindu reporters who also report that in the same way and portray Muslims as the villains.
Correct.
So effectively, in Rana Ayub's narratives, the Modi government as well as most of the Hindus of our country are the villains. Or chalo, maybe if it's not portraying the Hindus of the country as the villains, it's definitely portraying the Modi government as the villain.
True.
I wanted to be on the show and break down these thoughts. Ideally, with someone just like her from like the other side, which is doing the exact extreme opposite.
Yeah.
I believe Faye doesn't do exactly what Rana Ayub does, but she's talking to a very similar audience. And again, respect for Faye for leaving journalism, doing a whole independent journalism career. I've said this repeatedly. I think Palki Sharma, Smita Prakash ma'am, and Faye D'Souza are leading the charge when it comes to new age journalism in our country.
True.
Faye, I would just like by herself, on the show. I want to break down a lot of things about the country with her. And I want to get to the bottom of this in terms of what are Muslims in our country truly feeling? Because these are the influencers. These are the people that at least urban Muslims are turning to and urban Christians are turning to. So they have a huge say in society.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not accusing either Faye or Rana Ayub of anything, but I am inviting them on the show in order to deep dive. Have you followed Rana Ayub's content or Faye D'Souza's?
No, I don't follow politics as much. I study politics, which has got more to do with economics.
Okay. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about politics to do with economics. What do you think that the Modi government has actually done for the economy of the country? Because once again, I've spoken to economists on the show who have worked with the Modi government. No one's going to project their own work as having been flawed in any manner.
True.
Which is why I'm actually excited to listen to you. You're one of the most centrist opinions I've ever heard on the show. Let's go.
So I'll put forth a structure by which anybody who's watching this podcast can actually go on to analyze if a state government or the central government is doing a good job or not. Because this answer is so nuanced, you can't say yes or no to this. Okay. So there are three ways in which I break down the performance of a government: economic indicators, social indicators, and ease of doing business. Okay. Let's start with ease of doing business. In 1991, when our country got liberalized, it was liberalized on paper. We received a lot of foreign companies over here who created a lot of jobs. And after that, the GDP per capita shot up. The income of Indian middle class, it shot up. And that's how we saw the IT revolution. But what most people do not understand is that even today, it is very difficult to do business in India. For example, if I'm somebody who wants to set up a factory in India today, and I want to invest 100 crores in a state, it is very difficult for me to start my business quickly because I have to get a lot of permits from the power department, from the water department, from the environmental department, and so on and so forth. And because there's a lot of delay in this clearance, a lot of foreign businesses, they just quit India and they would rather go to Vietnam, Indonesia, or Bangladesh, where things are much easier in certain sectors, like textile sector is for Bangladesh. So the moment this happens, employment in India is not created. Economy of India could have received a lot of positive output, but because these companies, they quit India and they go somewhere else, we lose out on a lot of opportunities. So the question that you got to ask yourself is, what is your state or your country doing to increase the ease of doing business in India? For example, when it comes to Gujarat, they came up with the concept of something called single window clearance system, where they have a single portal. And by the way, the government of Gujarat was so obsessed with bringing business to Gujarat that they set up a dedicated customer support team who can help out these investors and businesses to get through the government regulations, government policies and procedures so that they can set up the factory very quickly. There was a major problem of land acquisition, for which the Gujarat government built something called the land bank. And because of that, when Ratan Tata wanted to shift his plant from West Bengal to another state, he got a lot of offers. But Gujarat was the quickest state to give land to Tata. As a result, within 15 days, Ratan Tata was able to make a decision. They shifted to Gujarat. If I'm not wrong, the Tatas have invested 6,060 crores in Gujarat, creating a lot of employment. So a very important indicator of whether the government is doing a good job or a bad job is to check how easy is it to do business in a particular state. And now the government is coming out with something called National Single Window Clearance System, which is basically the extended version of what they did in Gujarat. 2 to 3 years down the line, if the execution is done well, then a lot of FDI will come to India, employment will be created, and the economy will progress. The second indicator of whether a government is doing a good job or a bad job is to look at economic indicators. Here we have something called debt to GDP ratio, as in what is the GDP of the state, what is the debt that that particular state has taken up, and what is the ratio. RBI defines certain standards. If you have a look at it, you'll be able to compare as to how well your state is doing. So if your state is taking up a lot of debt, either it is investing that into infrastructure or it could be giving out freebies. So you have to check what exactly is your state spending the money on.
How do you check?
You can check it using multiple ways. One of the sources which I refer to is the RBI document, which constantly points out that certain states are giving out freebies. In fact, the document that I'm referring to, it has a list of all the freebies which the RBI kind of questions, along with the amount of money that the government has spent on that freebie. For example, if the Punjab government has spent a lot of money into giving out free electricity, which is causing a lot of trouble to the finances of the state, RBI will point that out and it will say that the government of Punjab has spent XYZ 1,000 crores into giving out free electricity, and maybe that's not a good idea.
Is this hypothetical or is that true? Like, has the Punjab government done this? They have.
Yes.
They have.
Yes.
And the AAP is in power in Punjab.
Yes.
So I had asked Atishi this exact question about freebie, this exact thing that you're saying. And I said that, how do you run the economy? Because I believe the inflation rate in Delhi, which has been the AAP stronghold, is very, very low. And it's kind of become a case study world over and all that. So she said that the way we are able to actually give what people call freebies is because the AAP is made up of politicians who are not corrupt at all.
Okay.
So that this is again not anti-AAP. Maybe I'm just trying to explain to you guys how the world of politics also works. Very important conversation is happening right now. I'm sorry I interrupted you, brother. Let's go on.
Bless his soul, and this is the thing when you're running a podcast like they're running and they have a huge audience, like you have to be so careful about what you say. And the thing is, like, when you're trying to be in center, like what they said in the previous episode, it will end up like you're offending everyone, where you're just trying to be as neutral as possible, and you're just trying to think about, like, have I offended this person or that person? Will this create a backlash? It's no easy job.
Yeah. So if you have a look at that RBI document, it will help you understand whether those freebies are good or bad. And more importantly, it will make you question what your state is doing. Then you have something called interest payments to revenue receipts, as in how much is the state generating out of tax and non-tax revenue, and how much of that money is going into interest payments for the debt that particular state has taken up. For example, if your income is 2 lakh rupees and you spend 1 lakh rupees into just paying the interest for your home loan, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Bad. It's a bad thing. So interest payments to revenue receipts. It actually tells you how much of your state's money is being spent on just interest payments, so that you can again keep a check on the state's finances. These are the economic indicators. There are multiple economic indicators, but these 2-3 economic indicators, they'll give you a fairly good idea. And then you have the social indicators. In social indicators, you have 3 major pain points of the society that needs to be addressed: healthcare, education, and worker wages. Are the wages at the bottom of the pyramid increasing? Because they are the first ones to suffer the brunt of inflation. They're the first ones to get affected in case of a natural calamity, in case of a economic disaster for that matter. So if you understand that the worker wages are increasing, the state is doing a good job. If you understand that the number of people graduating in that particular state is increasing, the state is doing a good job. If you understand that the beds per capita in the state is increasing, the state is doing a good job. So this way, using ease of doing business, economic indicators, and social indicators, you will be able to gauge whether the government is doing a good job or a bad job. Now, the homework for all the people who are watching this podcast or listening to this podcast is to actually go and seek this data and find out whether your state is doing a good job or a bad job. For reference, there are 2 videos that we've made. One on Gujarat, which is right before the Gujarat elections, and the other is right before the Karnataka elections. If you watch those videos, you'll be able to understand how we compare the data of that particular state with the RBI standards and with other states to help you understand whether the government is doing a good job or a bad job.
You've done this exercise, right?
Yes.
So you, at least in your mind, you have a list of the states that are doing a good job versus those that are doing a not so great job.
I have done this for a few states, which is Karnataka, Gujarat, and Sikkim.
Why these?
Because Gujarat and Karnataka election tha, so we had to make a video on it. As a result, we did the analysis. When it comes to Sikkim, Sikkim has done some insane job with organic farming.
Okay.
And my team brought it up and they said that Sikkim is a case study that's worth addressing. And hence we took that up.
Which party is in power in Sikkim?
I don't know, bro. That's the beauty of our research. We never look at which party is actually in power in that particular state. We just look at what is the job that the government has done, which has turned that state into a prosperous state.
Can we actually look it up? If we're having like this conversation now, while that data is mined by my team, I want to ask you that, say if there is state A and B where the same political party is ruling, could it be that they have different performances based on the local government structure there?
Absolutely.
That depends totally on the human angles there.
Correct. There are a lot of factors. For example, if Gujarat has the luxury of having Surat, and then you have a landlocked state like, say, Uttar Pradesh, then obviously Gujarat is going to have multiple advantages as compared to UP, right? If one state by default has very high literacy rate and the other state doesn't, then by default, this state will get advantage over the other state. For example, when it comes to our northeastern states, they don't have great transportation. And that's because of 2 reasons. Number one, we've been ignoring them for a very long time. And secondly, the terrain is such that it is very difficult to build a highway. It is very difficult to build a railway line over there, right? So again, over there, if a party is not building railway line or highways, it is both because they're ignoring it, they're not incentivized for it maybe, and thirdly, it could be because of the terrain. Now, depending on which state it is, we have to make the judgment. Again, this requires a lot of study and a lot of nuances, which is why I say, when it comes to nuances and data, mob will never understand nuance. A mob will never care about data. All they will care about is what exactly is the party's singular message out to the society. If they say that they will secure Hindus from certain threats, they just believe it, and that is more than enough for them. If they say that they will give out TVs for free, they will give out grinders for free, at that point in time, for them, if TV is important, that's it. They will draw the conclusion about the party's performance based on how generous the party is during certain time periods. That is the reason why this conversation that we're having, even if it is put out to the world in different languages, it will barely appeal to the top 10% of India and not for the rest 90%.
Maybe only the top 1%.
Maybe the top 1%. I'm just being optimistic to say 10%, but yeah.
Again, we won't come to a final conclusion about this. But if the audiences do enough research, they will be able to figure who the actual performers are between the AAP, BJP, and Congress.
Correct. Or they can just subscribe to Think School.
Are you going to go in that territory? Will you ever go into this whole Congress performance breakdown?
Yes.
You will?
Yeah. Because it's an important subject for business.
Why?
For example, Sikkim has done an incredible job with organic farming, bro. Whereas if you look at Sri Lanka, they failed miserably. And organic farming is a very difficult sector to capture. Do you know, Sikkim is, I think, the first or the second organic state in the world. And they've done a phenomenal job. The reason why they're able to do a phenomenal job is because they were able to, A, understand the economics of organic farming. The government was able to spot the demand for organic products. And number 3, they were able to educate people about the economics of organic farming. They were able to explain the importance of organic farming in the future, and they were able to execute it properly. Okay, and that is very beautiful. So as an entrepreneur, if I understand that Sikkim is the go-to state for organic farming, I will go to Sikkim and I will see if I could set up a warehouse over there and become a wholesaler.
Mad. Okay. Loving this conversation.
At the same time, there are multiple other states which are learning from Sikkim, and they're also trying to execute the same policies that Sikkim executed, so that even they can become an organic state. Why? Because of pesticides, there are a lot of health issues, and more importantly, the groundwater is being polluted. So states by default understand that because of Green Revolution, back then, we were forced to use those kind of methods, but now we have to get out of it. If we don't, the nation will be in a disaster. And as an entrepreneur, if I understand that Maharashtra is applying the same policies as Sikkim, because I know what happened in Sikkim, I'll be able to invest wisely in Maharashtra so that I can capitalize on the organic farming wave in Maharashtra. That is the reason why, like I said, government is the godfather of the market. If you understand what the godfather likes and what he doesn't like, you'll be able to capitalize on those opportunities, which otherwise you will never ever have access to.
Okay. Do you buy the BJP narrative about अच्छे दिन आने वाले हैं from back in 2014, I believe? And even the अच्छे दिन आने वाले हैं narrative now. I don't think they say that anymore. But both BJP politicians as well as pro-Modi Indians will always say that the next 30 years are India's to be won.
Yeah.
I'm asking you the exact specific in terms of how acha.
Okay, I will tell you why this is a beautiful marketing campaign and it's good for India in the long run. When they say अच्छे दिन आने वाले हैं, do you realize it is talking to the grassroots of Indian society and it is instilling hope. Hope is very, very powerful. When the entire nation believes that the next 3 decades are going to be our decades, because of that optimism, they will work very well. And that is what turned Japan into what it is today, that the entire nation collectively believed that although we've been through a lot, in the next 3 decades, we have to build a nation that the world aspires to become. So, अच्छे दिन आने वाले हैं, regardless of what that has resulted into, the one thing that I can say for sure is that it has resulted into a lot of optimism and Indians have regained their faith about a better India tomorrow. Now, as far as a marketing campaign is concerned, this is a brilliant campaign because it is understood by everybody. And kaun achhe din laega? If BJP is at the center of it, I think it's the perfect product placement ever. It's like Listerine. So Listerine first marketed the idea of halitosis, which is foul breath, and presented itself as a solution to foul breath. Before that, Listerine was a generic product. It could be used for wounds, it could be used for ulcer, it could be used for a lot of things. It could also be used for toilet cleaning, by the way. Would you put toilet cleaner in your mouth? No. So the messaging was not strong enough. But then this marketing agency came up and said, you know what, let's define the problem first and then tell people that, okay, this is the problem and here's your solution. And that is Listerine. That's exactly what BJP has done.
Okay, can I just have one comment here? It's interesting though, because I used to work for Colgate-Palmolive. I used to work for Unilever for their big toothpaste brands. And what I've learned there, gosh, I hope no one's watching. Okay, you guys, you have to keep this video. It's the second part, so no one is watching. So I can say that. So what I've been told, by the way, any of you that are buying mouthwashes, listen. So it's actually, you shouldn't use it after you wash your teeth, like after you brush your teeth. You can use it like outside, but if you use it right after brushing, it just kills all the good things that have happened in your mouth as a result of the fluoride in the toothpaste. So beware. This is like a very false marketing that's happening. Like when they're saying after brushing you do, swirl and everything is going to be okay. And it's actually not true. And I know it from like people that market it. They told me. It's so funny when you work for these big companies, you just gauge so many interesting insights that I just hold within me and I can't really talk about now. I'm talking about on a big scale, but since then I actually stopped using mouthwash. Just so you know, I'm not investing in mouthwash anymore. There is a very good brand, very niche brand of a toothpaste. I don't know if it would. I don't think it actually even happens to be in Slovakia. It was a Unilever owned brand. It's called Regenerate, and that is the only mouthwash that I would use. But also only if I want to freshen up when I can't brush my teeth. Otherwise, I wouldn't. And Regenerate is very good for strengthening your enamel. They've done some very good studies. Oh gosh, I sound like an ad for them, but this is the best toothpaste I've ever came across, you guys. And I've always had issues with my teeth, so for me that was important. And I literally handed it over to all my friends, and it's quite expensive, but it's really, really good and really effective. So I do highly recommend for anyone. Just my 2 cents.
They say that these are the problems in the country that we've been facing, and the culprit for that is XYZ party, and we are here to solve that, and we will bring Achhidan to India, which is, to me, a genius marketing strategy. So if you look at it from the nation perspective, it's a great thing, and every party should do that because it instills hope, and hope is very powerful. For a developing nation, that is perhaps one of the most important forces that will grow our country, that will grow our economy. From the marketing standpoint, it's a genius marketing strategy.
Okay. Do you truly feel that the Congress fucked up the country?
No, I will tell you why. So before I studied Singapore, I always thought the same as others. I thought Congress hasn't done a good job. But if you look at what a nation undergoes after it gets independence, it's crazy, bro. We could have had military dictatorship, just like Pakistan. We could have had a very unstable government like Pakistan. We could have been invaded by other countries. For example, when Singapore got independence, when Lee Kuan Yew came to power, he was extremely worried because a neighboring country actually saw a military coup. And he was extremely scared that because Singapore is located at a very strategic location, they might invade Singapore. Okay. So when a nation as big as India gets independence, everybody has their eyes on India. When Portugal became a democratic country, it became a breeding ground for drug cartels. And that ruined the country for the next 2 decades. 1% of the entire population of Portugal was a drug addict. So I believe that the success of the Congress government lies in keeping the country intact immediately after independence, when the country was in a very, very sensitive situation. I believe their achievement lies in keeping the country drug-free during a situation when we could have easily fallen prey to these drug cartels. And they were able to maintain a country with less chaos, if not no chaos. However, I also believe that the socialistic principles of Congress may not have been the best thing that happened to India. Because if you look at China, like I said, they opened up their economy in 1978. We were 13 years late, 1991. Before 1991, if you wanted to open up a watch company in India, it was very difficult. And there was only one watch company in India, which was Hindustan Machine Tools. And Tata's had to struggle to open up a company in India. And that is what led to Titan, which is why Titan is not just Tata, it is Tamil Nadu government and Tata Industries. TI, Tata Industries, TAN, Tamil Nadu government. If this was the case, do you realize we were stopping ourselves from so many opportunities? In fact, in the 1970s, do you know what happened? Suddenly the government of India came up and said to Coca-Cola and IBM that, listen guys, we are going to own a piece of your business in India and you'll have to decrease your stake from your own business. So what happened? Coca-Cola left, IBM left, they came back after liberalization. Now, when these kind of policies were executed, for whatever reasons they were executed for, I believe they may not have been the best things to happen to India.
Okay. Would you like to cover anything else in this geopolitics and politics special today? Because I think we've kind of focused on India on this one, and I'm sure we could do America the same way in a future episode.
Yes.
I guess we have an all-star, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't know if I'll be able to give you guys enough information as much as Abhijit Chawda sir, but yeah, I'll try my best.
Dude, you are also built for the world of podcasting. Had a lot of respect for you just on the basis of the content I saw. It's increased even more getting to know the podcasting side of you, which is a much closer representation of the real person, according to me. Like, it's great. And there's a need for both informational content and this kind of content. I believe a combination of these two things actually builds mindsets. And that's one thing that young content creators can do for the country.
Yeah.
This is what a lot of my mentors have told me, that your job is to help build mindsets. And honestly, that's kind of what all the politicians from all the parties have also echoed. Are you hopeful about where we're going in the 20s and 30s?
I'm very hopeful, bro, because we're following the trajectory of China. We've opened up our economy. We've laid very solid foundations to invite many more businesses. We are already the most populous country in the world. The world is moving out of China because China wants them to move out, and also because the world wants to move out of China. And that means a lot of opportunities for not just India, but also Indonesia, Vietnam, and Bangladesh. So Asia as a whole, they will see some beautiful years in the next 3 decades. And India being at the center of it, I think we are about to see an economic revolution in the next 2 decades.
What do you think can possibly go wrong in this India story going forward?
Inconsistent government policies.
Inconsistent government policies.
Correct.
Or an inconsistent government?
No, inconsistent government policies. Because governments might come and go, as in parties may come and go, but they have 2 options. One is to build upon what the previous party built, or to destroy what the previous party built and then start something new again. With China, that wasn't the case because they're not like us. So the government for 3 decades was focused in a single direction, because of which they were able to build what they've built. Whereas with us, we have the risk of changing parties, which may destroy the foundations that have been laid by this party, and they may do things in their own way, which may be disastrous for the nation. For example, let's take the case of Digital India. Do you know about the India Stack?
It's something being adopted by other countries, this whole digital infrastructure, UPI.
Yes, not by other countries, but what we built in India over here. It is such a beautiful concept. So we had Aadhaar. Then we saw Jan Dhan Yojana in 2014 when Modi ji said everybody is supposed to open up bank accounts. We opened up 500 million bank accounts. And then we saw GST. In between, we saw Aadhaar linking with PAN. So identity was established, bank accounts were given, then Aadhaar and PAN got linked, or at least the process started back then. In between, we saw the rise of RuPay, and today RuPay is one of the strongest players in the debit card market. Then we saw GST, then we saw UPI, and now we are seeing OCEN, OCEN, Open Credit Enablement Network, which means today if you're an MSME, a micro, small or medium enterprise, last year, had you gone to the banks and taken up a loan, the loans would come at a cost of 30%, 40% interest, even if that was a small amount like 50,000 rupees. But now the government has laid the foundation with something called Open Credit Enablement Network. So because the MSMEs have a GST certificate, because they have Aadhaar, because their PAN is linked and everything is connected together, now OCEN is built on that fundamental infrastructure by which, because you're using UPI to make transactions, the government will be able to check how much money you're receiving and how much money you're giving out. So even for a small Kirana store, this is what Paytm has done with Paytm Soundbox, that if you have a cash flow of 3 lakh rupees, and let's say you're operating in an industry which has a 15-20% margin, so Paytm understands that you might be making somewhere around 60,000 rupees per month. So if you apply for a loan of 10,000 rupees, Paytm will process it without any procedures. Similarly with OCEN, if you're an MSME and you apply for loan 1 year later from today, after this foundation is built, you'll be able to get loans very easily. And MSME sector contributes 33% to our GDP, employs over 110 million people. So do you see, Aadhaar led to Jan Dhan Yojana, led to RuPay, led to GST, led to UPI, and now we are looking at OCEN. And on the same foundation, we're also building unified health interface. So if we keep on building over the foundations that we've already built, we will end up doing something absolutely extraordinary, which is what we've seen in the past 9 years with Digital India. So if we continue to do so over the next 3 decades, you can imagine all of this has happened in just 1 decade. So for the next 3 years, if we keep building on that, things will be good. If we don't build upon that, things will be disastrous because we've already spent a lot into building this infrastructure. And if we don't build upon that, this will go to waste. Plus, we'll spend more to build more foundations.
Okay. What I'm going to say now might seem like some sort of accusation upon you or an attack upon you, but it's not. I'm just saying this so that the audience works on its own thinking process. My angle here is, what if even you're in an echo chamber, which is built up of capitalists like yourself?
True. That is quite possible. And I say this to my audience also, which is why I never give out my opinions in my videos. Like when you asked me whether this government is doing a good job or not, I did not give you a yes or no answer. I told you that these are the parameters. Go and check for yourself. Because it's a very nuanced answer. And same is the case with me also. Because I'm in this echo chamber, with or without my choice, I am bound to be biased. I will try my level best not to be, but even then, there is a very high possibility that I might be slightly biased, which is why we speak only data. We give out the study materials so that people can cut through our bias and study data by themselves and draw their own conclusions.
Bro, you please go hang with some communists. No, I'm kidding. My point is, maybe the things that you count as success are often money and finances based. Now let's take that to success of a nation or a government. Again, it's money and finances based because you're capitalist in your heart.
No. When it comes to assessing the government, like I said, there are also social indicators, and economic indicators are just one part of the 3-part judgment. So if you delve deep into social indicators, then we're not looking at it from the capitalistic standpoint. We are looking at it from a socialistic standpoint.
I'm as capitalist as you are. Like, I'm on the same page. But I've just learned to constantly disagree with guests who are allowing me to disagree with them. Because it just leads to more nuanced conversation.
True.
I would love to have a conversation with you and an extremely anti-Modi journalist. Just to see what they say.
I might agree with a lot of things that they say, by the way.
Yeah. No, for sure. You're doing great. It's not easy to do what you're doing for sure, both from a back-end perspective and to kind of create the content with the look, the research and all that you are creating. So I'm really looking forward to see what the next 10, 20, 30 years create for you. It'll be very, very interesting because as a footballer, you know another footballer's game. It's just you and Dhruv Rathi who I put in that category of pure love for content. So thank you. I appreciate your time, my man.
Thank you so much, man.
Wow, what a great podcast. This was really, really, for me, it was on point. I really liked, I don't know the name of the thing guy, I think school guy, I keep calling him Think School. But I have a lot of respect for him based on this conversation. Obviously, I've reviewed a few of his videos. It always seemed very good. I really, really like, he clearly has a team of perhaps good data analysts and data scientists. They are distilling the information for him. I, in my biased way, did agree with basically most of the things that they had said, and you would have seen my commentary, especially in part 1. But I think what I wanted to actually say was that, because I have a degree in teaching, master's degree, and right now I'm also studying something similar with teaching. It's more about educational development in organizations, like organizational design, organizational strategy, and learning and development. And I have a strong interest in the future of work and future skills, and actually worked in an organization that does training and stuff like that. And for me, there are some critical future skills, at least in the West. I never really evaluated or looked at Asia, but data is one of the skills that everyone will have to have. To a certain extent, and this is where when I'm currently like doing something with statistics, I'm like, Jesus Christ, like I don't fully understand that, and the course is built in a way which is not great at all. But I feel like I need to do a proper like certification or something on data analysts, because it's a skill that every single one, regardless where you are and what kind of industry, you will need to know. And especially if you want to survive and objectively, when you want to judge politics and whether they're doing bad or good, in that respect, you need to know. I believe this is a skill. From my research that I've done on skills, at least in the West, this is one of the skills that everyone will have to know, regardless which industry you work in. That because the amount of data is exponentially increasing. At least in the West, there is still shortage of data analysts, data scientists. They make shitloads of money because of that, because it's kind of a new profession emerged over the last 5-7 years. So you wouldn't have a traditional roles like that. But now it's become very high, very popular. And with like 5G, 6G, whatever craziness is going to happen, the analysis of data and real trying to understand the data is going to exponentially increase. And I think it will be forced upon all of us, which is on the other hand not a bad thing. I just wish it would be then, for kids in schools, like part of the curriculum, but also done in a practical way. So I think this has been very interesting, and me as someone who's doing a YouTube channel, like they spoke a lot to me. This is why I've been, especially in the part 1, very interjecting into their conversation, because it felt very familiar. And it was interesting to see that, regardless culture, like no boundaries in that sense. So I think for what I'm seeing, I fully support and recommend Think School. I think the guy is really, really on point, and I think he must have a very strong data team behind him. I would definitely recommend all of you who are not watching him regularly, because I'm sure he's doing very strongly, Indian content that perhaps would be of maybe a lesser interest to me, because I would have to have much more, I have so many other things to learn about. But nonetheless, I would take him as a benchmark. He definitely feels like knows what he's doing. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching this video and 2-part podcast with me. If you did enjoy, please give a thumbs up, share, like, and subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you next one. Until then, please do take care. I'm sending much love. Bye-bye.